Buckle up, health tech enthusiast. Today, we are diving into the future of healthcare with none other than Jason Cross, co founder and chief strategy officer of Rymedi. Remedi's vision is to empower with personalized care through their cutting edge blockchain platform. Think secure, streamlined health records with seamless communication and between patient and providers, power of revolutionary potential of blockchain. In today's podcast, we'll grill Jason to understand more about the power of blockchain and how it can be used to build the future, especially around health equity and access. Welcome, Jason. How are you today?
Thanks. I'm doing really well. Very happy to be on the podcast and look forward to the discussion.
Yes, pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much. And Jason, to start with, why not you do a quick introduction about yourself, your work, and about Rymedi?
Sure, fantastic. So briefly, my background is global health innovation, law, policy, and business strategy. I used to be a professor at Duke University and lead a think tank on health innovation there. It was a think tank and venture incubator, and a lot of the work that we did was especially focused on emerging markets and working with ministries of health and global pharmaceutical and device companies on innovative, what today we would call value-based contracting, to expand access to high-impact medicines and devices and diagnostics and so forth. And at that time, one of the big challenges that I saw, it frankly cost millions of lives in solutions that could have really helped a lot of people, not taking effect. But it also cost companies potentially billions of dollars and ministries of health potentially billions in savings that would have been reinvested into more preventive health infrastructure. And the big challenge was when you want to align multiple parties around an incentive structure like a value-based contract of any kind that's tied to outcomes. If they don't trust each other's ability to do what they're supposed to quality spec, right, then that's a big challenge, right? Second, if they don't trust each other's data, well now we're going to have a big problem knowing whether everyone's doing what they're supposed to. Right. And generally no one trusts each other with each other's data, right? There's all sorts of intellectual property, privacy, liability reasons, et cetera. So enterprise blockchain technology was beginning to be deployed in the mid-2010s, and I went looking for the right partners who could provide that missing piece, that trust infrastructure. And I met my co-founder, Dave Stefanich, and our CEO. He's our lead technologist, and he was CTO of a pharmaceutical manufacturer. He was automating quality management systems inside a factory making medicines and using blockchain because of the immutable records and the cryptography helps improve kind of permission access to information and so forth. He was already using blockchain protocol and automating what we call QMS, quality management systems. So I'm like, look, Dave, we take this out of the four walls of a factory into the world of decentralized healthcare where people are getting screened one place, diagnosed someplace else, picking up prescriptions at a pharmacy, getting seen by providers in multiple places that might have different EHRs. We take this kind of solution out to the world of decentralized care. Not only can we help healthcare activities be done more efficiently and to higher quality, but we can enable new business models that are really tied to outcomes and to value. And those new business models can radically improve access to care. And so Rymedi was born, and we describe ourselves as a digital workflow and data automation platform. And those two aspects, the workflows help organizations, administrators, providers, patients have a much simpler experience as they have to follow a care continuum, whether it's increasingly it's in different places with different systems, et cetera. And then the data automation backend automates all sorts of interoperability in and out of different IT systems, EHRs, clinical trial data systems, laboratory information systems, et cetera, but also it automates data compliance across all the different regulatory regimes that might apply. Because one of the challenges in enabling healthcare and therefore precision care that is often requires that sort of team approach to really be connected is that in any one place in the world, laboratory regulations are going to be different than pharmaceutical regulations. And those are going to be different than privacy regulations for hospitals. And those are going to be different than privacy regulations if someone's in a clinical trial, et cetera. So usually it's all sorts of compliance issues that get in the way of all that interconnectivity. So we automate all that. We make it simple for a bunch of different organizations. Say, hey, we can all serve patients better working together in this way. And as companies make more money, this is digital infrastructure that'll simplify doing that and take a lot of the risk out. That is usually the barrier to making that happen. And we work with laboratories, diagnostic manufacturers, pharmaceutical companies. We're used in clinical trials. We're used in test and treat campaigns. So we like to say we improve the patient-provider experience in testing, treating, and monitoring patients. All of those modalities.
Okay, great. So Jason, your blockchain journey pretty much started very early into the blockchain decade, I would say. And, you started working on it before it was hot, and then it also became cold in the last 1 year. So, looking from that lens, how would you explain this whole change and, taking lessons or cues out of it? What do you see as the future for blockchain, especially in context of healthcare?
Yes. So one is focus on where and how blockchain technology can enable real value propositions for enterprise. And so one is sort of, stepping away from the hot buzzwords of the moment for the sake of the buzzwords. And one of the advantages that we have is my CEO Dave's experience prior to Rymedi being CIO and CTO in pharma companies and in global logistics and automotive companies a decade before that. So he has experience in scaling globally large enterprise systems that at the end of the day have to deliver more value than you're spending on them as a company, right? And so when we started, and this remains part of our DNA today, it's as blockchain protocols and layer 1 and layer 2 and layer 3 solutions develop and evolve and different ecosystems, et cetera, we keep up with it, but it's always, all right, where and how does this add value to a back end, a data management backend that also has lots of non-blockchain components, right? So it's really focusing on like where and how do aspects of blockchain add value. And in the world of healthcare, we found for us, and there are a variety of different health blockchain innovators out there, and we're friends and allies with a lot of them, et cetera. Some are competitors, and we're still cheering each other on, even when we're competing. And we've all taken different approaches. For Rymedi, the value of blockchain is let me step back. Take one step back. What we found is selling blockchain's value in enterprise has worked best when we don't lean in with the blockchain part of the story. There's still, in healthcare and life sciences, a lot of misunderstandings. Like half of the executives just think it's crypto, et cetera, right? Or NFTs that their kids are trading. And so we lean in with the actual enterprise value proposition. Look, we can help your lab potentially sort of double the business that it's going to do in the next 3 years. And reduce these risks and cut these costs down, et cetera. So we lean in with the workflows that are, at the end of the day, what the customer is going to buy, right? Mm-hmm. And then how do we deliver the value of those workflows when they're cutting across different regulatory jurisdictions? Because a workflow may tie together in the US, a CLIA lab regulation, and then also help a point of care test that's regulated by the FDA, a different agency, be compliant, et cetera. We do that. We can connect much more simply across those workflows because on the back end, our compliance engine is leveraging blockchain to automate compliance across those different regulatory regimes. So blockchain usually comes up in a discussion of, oh, wow, okay, we're really interested in buying what you're offering. How do you do it? And at that point, you've already got them interested, right? And the details of our blockchain architecture usually come up after you've made the business sale, right? And then there's the compliance diligence. So chief information security officer team, they have their security reviews and check your cybersecurity, your privacy policies. They check out the infrastructure, et cetera. And it's at that point that we tease out, okay, our proprietary blockchain architecture uses these public blockchain protocols. Right now, we've got a fantastic partnership with Avalanche and Ava Labs and run 3 Avalanche subnets on the Avalanche protocol for healthcare and life science compliance automation engine that we use. Super fast, super cheap, super simple to configure for different regulatory rules around the world. But it's usually at that point in the security diligence stage of a sale where the company already wants to buy, right? That you get into the details of the protocol and how do you, how are you using blockchain protocols? How's that interacting with off-chain databases and storage that you might be using for different aspects of the data sets, et cetera. And that gets teased out. But by then, the key buyers in the organization are in, right? And still in healthcare and life sciences, you take a risk leaning forward with blockchain first in a lot of instances. You may luck out and you may have an executive that is very interested already in how blockchain, Web3 can be applied to healthcare. And then that might drive interest, but it's still a minority of executives. So you're still risking, I'd say there's a 50-50 chance you get someone who doesn't understand it and they immediately become, they kind of stop listening to you, right? So why take that risk on? Start off with the value you can offer them. And then when they want to know how you do it, then you explain it.
Right, makes sense. I think with any technology, like even for AI today, like how do you create a business case that is beyond just using, say, ChatGPT? And so yes. I think that's true for any business. So, during these conversations, since you have been in the thick and thin of this, and you mentioned about creating a business model, technically, what are the challenges for a health CIO to adopt, like the blockchain capability, and so on?
Well, I think, so for other companies that are looking to do it, I'm proud of how we've done it. And a lot of it is the technical leadership of our CEO, Dave, who was both an early blockchain technology user. So he was running crypto mines in his daughter's closet in the early 2010s, and then actually was running mines to learn the technology from the inside out, from the circuit boards and everything in the early 2010s. But also he was a global Fortune 500 CIO, CTO. So he understood that at the end of the day, value to an organization, an enterprise, and cost structure of delivering that value is the most important thing. And then How can technology serve that is the second question. And so, so for us, we focused the Rymedi architecture to use private, essentially private blockchain networks to store actual data sets, and then hashes of those data sets. It allows us to have identity information and health information stored separately, which makes at scale compliance with lots of global privacy laws for patients much simpler. And then a subset of an identity information, if it's de-identified data, then it's just a unique identifier is attached to certain kinds of health information.
This episode of Health Tech with Purpose podcast is brought to you by MindBowser, a product engineering and digital transformation company focused on health. At MindBowser, we enable health companies to build the future of health where accessible, equitable, and patient care.
We strongly believe that technology can empower a healthier world, and that's why we are partnering with healthcare experts like yours to make it happen.
Hi guys, thanks for listening to Healthtech with Purpose. Make sure to subscribe us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube for more expert insights on industry innovation and transformation. And remember, share the knowledge.
Every digital event is hashed and then stored on an immutable permissionless public blockchain protocol. That allows for the immutable audit trails, all that, but it also allows us to be GDPR compliant. So if a patient or a customer wants data deleted, we can clip the hash pointers on the public chain and then delete the underlying data in the private networks, etc. So this is an architecture designed specifically for scalability in healthcare and life sciences. Entrepreneurs in other industries may want to leverage blockchain architectures that are optimized for scale in different ways because they might have different regulatory issues that could be solved by blockchain. In the realm of healthcare, we also have, the majority of our partners and customers just use our cloud platform as is, right? And it might handle some things on the back end, and they might be running their own legacy, their own in-house developed sort of front end, or they might be running on a third-party lab information system that they've got a 5-year contract with, etc. Or they may be using us for the UI for all of it. But we have a growing number of digital health companies that have a software development kit, an SDK partnership with us. They're just building on top of us. They've realized, you know what, like you guys sunk tens of millions of dollars into this architecture, like optimized for healthcare. We know this particular problem in healthcare or really well, or this problem in this part of the world, this problem in Germany, for example, etc. And we're just going to build on top of your platform, leverage it, and then we're really excited about empowering all those other entrepreneurs to go out and solve problems.
Okay, great. No, that's very interesting. In fact, I think it's a clever move for both parties to basically make it a win-win. Jason, my next question is about understanding of, from the context of ethical and responsible usage of blockchain in healthcare. So just like we talk about the ethical AI, we understand again that blockchain is all about trust, but is there a ethical and a non-ethical part to it that you see? And if yes, then how do you make sure that, what is being built is only for the greater use and cannot be misused, like any fallings that you see?
Yes. So there are some advantages, and again, this depends on the blockchain technology that you're using. So one of the early, like a Hyperledger Fabric sort of private network can be a semi-distributed private network, but if the several different parties running nodes all agree that they want to cheat in some way, well, then they can cheat pretty easily, right? So like, whereas, one of the permissionless public protocols like Avalanche, you don't have to worry about. It's much harder, right? In fact, when part of the genius from the Bitcoin white paper on of these distributed permissionless protocols is just, it's not just about architecture and cryptography that provides the security and reliability. It's also the economics of it. It just doesn't make sense if you're distributed enough to change information, right? And so, but in terms of ethics related to the technology, I think therefore sort of governance of these networks, right, really matters, particularly the less distributed a network is. Also, I think it's more a matter as opposed to AI in blockchain. When it comes to ethical blockchain technology, it's more about ethics of how you use the capabilities of blockchain. So, for example, this comes up in discussions about involving patients as individuals or patient collectives or groups in the monetization of patient data. Right? Because that's one of the things that blockchain technology makes. I mean, you could do it without blockchain, but blockchain technology makes it much simpler, cheaper, scalable to have these kind of models where patients are cut into data monetization. Well, do you approach that from a sort of hyper-libertarian perspective where each patient is getting a cut based on their individual data contributions, or do you have a more communitarian approach where it's kind of like a co-op and data is being it's pooled, it's monetized, and maybe you have a few different tiers based on how much data you contribute, but those get divided up kind of in dividend structures, right? Those not only have fairness implications in terms of the distribution of wealth generated from the problem-solving value that data that patients help create generates, but also it could have incentive effects on patients. Like, I never want a patient with a rare disease that's for which their individual data is really valuable to maybe harm themselves to pay rent next month, right? So I think that's one example. Another area is actually in the interface of blockchain and ethical AI, and so blockchain allows for the tagging of also in tracking of data contributions to AI solutions, both in model training and in the computation that generates outputs. And so this can allow for more ethical AI sort of business models. It could also allow for more fine-tuned model training that is in sync with the permissions that patients ultimately gave for what their data can and can't be used with, etc. So I'm really excited about the interface of ethical AI and ethical blockchain.
So, Jason, the last question that I would like you to talk about is the talk that you had given at the Web3 conference at Davos. And I was checking it out. It seemed pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. Now, many of our listeners may have missed the bigger talk, but since we have an opportunity, I would want you to share some of the threads that you had shared or the highlights of the talk from the one that you gave, and we'd like to talk about that one.
Yeah, no, that's a Aish, that's a great it's a great bookend for the conversation, because what I'll say in the next few minutes is going to, in some ways, restate what I said at the beginning. So one of the Web3 and Health Davos panel was a very lively discussion, and a lot of it had to do. There were sort of two elements of it. One, there are some panelists reflecting on the challenges of adoption of blockchain in at scale outside of pilots, because there are lots of pilots that big enterprises have done in healthcare and life sciences globally. The other was a more fundamental question, like, well, is blockchain actually delivering differentiated value for healthcare? And so I'm proud of the fact that because of the millions of dollars of like revenue generating business that Rymedi does with global life science companies, that I could say, yes, we're delivering value, right? So we're using the technology in a way that allows us to do new things or old things much more efficiently and at a better cost structure than before, such that our customers are willing to pay because they get more value than what they pay out, right? So now, like, there's a business case there. We're solving problems with the technology. It's solving them better than alternative technology platforms have. And large enterprises outside of pilots are paying for it because they're actually getting value. And in healthcare, that means they can serve more patients, they can do more things for those patients, et cetera. So we're doing that. The first point, how are you doing that? Well, one is we're using the technology to actually solve problems and in a scalable, cost-effective back-end architecture. The other is we're also not talking about it up front, except for panels on Web3 and healthcare, or like maybe, one area where we do start off talking about more partnerships that we're developing in the DeSci, in the decentralized science space. So there are a variety of DeSci projects and companies that we're partnered with, and I also shared the experience that I presented earlier in this conversation, which is what we found is like lean in with the actual value differentiating like problems that you're solving for enterprise. And then when they want to know how you're doing it, that's when blockchain comes up. And outside of special panels or niche business domains like DeSci, where everyone there, is an enthusiast of the promise that blockchain can deliver for science, then you can go at it. But don't scare people away with your first sentence. One final point. One way that we talk about blockchain in the case of like your typical life science executives in like a sales process, and also in DeSci or other blockchain native communities, is we talk about Rymedi as today we are a Web 2.5 platform, right? And we are enabling Web3 ecosystems that are emerging and that will scale in the future. Now, what do I mean by that? One is to the extent that Web3 is not just a term referring to sort of underlying blockchain technology, it's also about decentralization. It's about more autonomous interaction between not just smart contracts and code, but also organizations, right? Less control by centralized organizations, et cetera. So Web3 is not just technology; it's also an ethos. It's also an economic paradigm, et cetera. Well, Web 2.5 is essentially the Web 2 world, right? It's like corporations, right? And hospital systems that may be for profit, maybe nonprofit, but at the end of the day, if they're going to contract with someone to do something, they need to have a company that they can sue if there's something that goes wrong. They need to have a phone number to call when something's not working, right? So we bring blockchain-enabled value to those Web 2 organizations and Web 2 economies. But what we're also doing is providing blockchain-based data integrity and immutable audit records and immutable records of all the compliance of all those data elements for everything being generated on Rymedi in those Web 2 organizations today. That means all that real-world data, real-world evidence that's generated by these centralized organizations today, in the future, when you have more, or if we have sort of the Web3, visions of more decentralized health information exchanges and patient monetization, et cetera, data being generated by like legacy health institutions today on Rymedi will have that blockchain data integrity all the way. That means pre-Web3 healthcare data, at least on Rymedi, will have all of the immutable records, compliance, auditability, et cetera, that like fully Web3 native data in the future is going to have. So we talk about ourselves as being that Web 2.5 on-ramp to a Web3 health future. Because today, outside of niche pilots, blockchain is being used by large enterprise. We're doing it with large enterprise. But it's being done by companies. And it's being done by companies that are accountable to boards of directors and shareholders and centralized organizations, et cetera. And so, so we're in a transition phase. It could be a fast transition. It could be a long one. I don't know if it's going to be 10 years or a century. Right. But either way, we're providing that on-ramp. And we're excited about playing that role in the broader ecosystem as well.
Great. Thank you so much, Jason, for joining us today and giving this quick masterclass on blockchain in healthcare. And I believe for a lot of healthcare enthusiasts, there is a lot of takeaways. Understanding the perspective, I would say, to apply blockchain. And that's the best job that you've done in the last 30 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ayush. I really enjoyed the conversation and looking forward to talking again.
Yeah.